Hello YouTube, and welcome back to another alternate history video. And today I got the 1980 presidential election, which of course was held between the incumbent president Jimmy Carter and Republican challenger Ronald Reagan. In this alternate scenario here, you see I got Walter Mondale, the vice president, who was the 84 nominee. I got him if like Carter didn't decide to run for re-election because of his unpopularity, and Mondale instead decides to run and he gets the nomination. There it would be. And I know it's been a while since I've done one of these, so I figured I'd get back in the groove here and make another one. I want to try to make this video pretty quick since I have a TV show coming up that I want to watch, so I'll try to make this swift. This little background 1980, if you didn't know, like I said, it was coming off Carter's first term. He was unpopular. Economy, stagflation that started under Ford and then get better, even though Carter promised change. Stagflation was still going on. The Iran hostage crisis made his approval plummet, and Reagan cruised to a landslide victory. So I believe the same would happen if he was against Mondale. Anyway, let's get into it. I believe these West Coast states would go for Reagan, Washington, Oregon, and his home state of California, like that in our timeline, as well as Alaska. These Mountain West states, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, the Mormon Belt, Nevada, very rural, as well as Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona, all rural and conservative back then. They all went for Reagan, so I believe we'll go for him in this scenario, as well as the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma. Now, Reagan actually did win the South in 1980. It was close. A lot of these states in the South here were decided by 1 point or less, but because of Carter's unpopularity, even though he won these states in 76, Reagan was able to win them since Reagan had a good appeal here too with rural voters because of his economic and social stances. So I believe Reagan would take these states against Mondale too, since he did it in 84. Say of Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, as well as South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, my home state of Virginia, and Missouri, Illinois as well. Reagan definitely a great appeal in this state in the rural and suburbs, as well as Indiana. West Virginia did go for Carter, however. It did go for Reagan in 84. That was because his popularity rarely went up because Reaganomics was popular. But since it says 1980, I could see Mondale still winning West Virginia. I think it definitely would be narrow, but because of it being 1980, I think this actually would go Mondale, since it did go to Carter, because it didn't go to Reagan until 4 years later because of popularity of Reaganomics. So this being 4 years earlier, I think this would edge out Mondale. I think Reagan, however, would take Ohio and Iowa. Definitely a great support in the rural areas and with the white working class in these states. And yes, they did go for him to make sure, so I believe they'll go for him in a scenario against Mondale. However, I think Mondale will take his home state in Minnesota. It's a Democratic street since 76. However, I think Reagan would take Wisconsin and Michigan like he did in the actual scenario. He definitely had great support here at the working class in the rural areas. Reagan Democrats, I believe they would go for him. As well as Pennsylvania, a great support statewide, suburbs, rural areas, working class, as I mentioned. New York actually did go for Reagan in 1980 after it went for Carter in 76, so I believe for that reason we'll go Reagan in this case. I see a great support statewide in suburbs and rural parts like I talked about in these other states, as well as Vermont, New Hampshire, which were known as Rockefeller Republican states back then, as well as Maine. Massachusetts, I believe, actually did go for Reagan. I'm going to check here. So it did. However, it was very tight. But since it actually did go Reagan in our timeline, I could see him doing the same against Mondale because I believe he did win it in 84 as well. So because it was, even though it was very tight, Reagan was able to pull out the victory. I think it would go him in this case against Mondale, but still in a tight contest. I believe Rhode Island, however, went Carter by at least 10 points. I'm going to double check that. So yeah, about 10 points. And because of that, I believe it could go Mondale because of that. That'll be in 1984. Definitely, if this was the 84 scenario, I'd give it to Reagan. But because of it being 1980, I believe this could go Mondale since it did Carter. Connecticut, however, I believe was a Reagan state. So yes, it was. About 10 points, so I believe that would go him. because that was a really moderate Republican state like these back then, as well as New Jersey and Delaware. I believe Maryland, however, went for Carter by only a couple points or so, which I'm going to check for sure. So yeah, it did go by Carter by a few points. I could see Reagan winning it, but I think since Carter was able to win it, as I mentioned with these other states, 1980, I believe it would go for him. Mondale, I believe would win that, as well as DC. And here's the final map, except Hawaii. Let's give that to Mondale because it did go for Carter. So here's the final map now. Reagan still won a landslide 501 to Mondale's 37, similar to the 84 map, just with Mondale winning a few more states as of the 1980 factor, and Reagan not being in office yet. So if you agree or disagree with this, just comment below your thoughts on this. I thank you for watching. Subscribe and hit the bell for notifications if you haven't, and I'll see you next time.